Hi everybody, Ahmad Sadiq of Land Trust Title of Central Florida. Let's talk title. Today I wanted to talk about a nightmare scenario that can happen in some transactions. So imagine that we're sitting at a closing table. It's 4:45 in the afternoon, a day before a long weekend, and we've already finished balancing with the lender. We're about to start signing the buyers to get the transaction closed and funded hopefully as soon as possible. And then at the closing table, while we're finishing up the last bit of signing, one of the real estate agents hands over an addendum that we haven't seen before. And that addendum deals with a credit that the buyer is supposed to get from the seller, and that significantly changes the numbers and what the buyer is supposed to be sending over to us. This is a scenario that can delay your transaction, and in some instances delay your transaction significantly. In a situation where the seller is relying on receiving those funds from the buyer on our transaction to purchase another property, we have a delay there. We can potentially have a delay of the buyers on our transaction being able to move into the property, because in a situation like that, we're going to have to go back and talk to the closer at the bank and make sure that we rebalance those numbers. And if there's any money that needs to be given back to the buyer as a result of that credit, we need to make sure that that's done, because the buyer needs to be able to bring in the cash that they're supposed to bring to close the transaction out, and anything that's owed back to them should go back to them. However, if we're starting to rebalance a closing disclosure at 4:45 on a Friday before a long weekend, there's a pretty good chance in that situation that that transaction's not going to close that day. And we're going to have a long delay, meaning that the long weekend that the buyer was going to use to move into the property is out the window at that point. So the important thing to note here is that there are addendums that are being executed during the course of a transaction. You want to make sure that as soon as that addendum is executed, it's sent over to the title company. Even if you feel that the addendum is not relevant, if it has nothing to do with the financial aspect of what the numbers are going to look like between the buyers and the sellers, send it over to the title company anyways. We like to have a complete picture of what's going on and what the expectations are. So as soon as an addendum is executed, please send that over to the title company so they can at least make it part of their file. And if it adjusts numbers, then we can go ahead and get that adjusted so that we can balance the numbers properly once we get to that point. Because once we're balanced, it's really hard to go back without causing a delay on the transaction. Guys, thank you so much for your time, and I hope to see you next time.